Hi, and welcome to another edition of All About Franchising. So often folks will ask, is my business good to franchise? What type of businesses are good for franchising? Well, there are some criteria to consider when looking at your business or maybe trying to develop a business in order to eventually franchise it. Probably the most important thing right off the bat is it must be in a strong industry that's not only strong now but has the ability to grow in the future. So to use a kind of simple example, you would never have franchised the horse and buggy industry now as it's been replaced by the car. So no matter how good of a horse and buggy business you'd have now, it's not going to survive because it's just outdated and it doesn't compete in today's marketplace. So there's a lot of great businesses out there that are still profitable and thriving, but probably wouldn't be the best going forward. So you have to be realistic about where the industry is going when considering if you should franchise a business inside that industry. Another thing to consider is the reasonable investment compared to ROI. Obviously, the less expensive the upfront costs are to a franchise, and that might mean the cash costs or just the amount you have to put down in order to secure a loan, should be reasonable and low if possible. That way you have more possible buyers. But the most important thing is, what is that payback? If the franchisee follows your system and does a really good job, how quickly can they make back the money that they put in? How quickly can they get to profitability and over time justify the investment that they put in up front? And then can the product or service can be learned reasonably? How long would it take to become proficient at providing the product or service that is going to be the main component of the franchise? That's important for a bunch of reasons, because obviously folks can't be away from home for long periods of trying to learn a business. If they send managers or other staff and then they were to lose those staff, how quickly could they replace them? And would there be even ample staff available that might already have some background in providing that product or service? So again, some other things to consider would be lower cost is going to have more possible buyers. Part-time businesses, things that can be started, quote, on the side, can be very popular. However, you do have to be realistic about them. Often things that are on the side are treated like things on the side. So while some simple businesses might be able to be started on the side, it probably shouldn't be the main component in sales approach for the business, because you might attract, unfortunately, folks that think it doesn't take much attention, and all businesses take attention at the beginning. Another thing is it a service or brick and mortar? Meaning, does it need an office? Is it run out of home? Those are really important things. Obviously, out-of-home businesses are lower startup, but again, do they have an office in their home? Are they going to take it seriously? These are some things to consider. In brick and mortar, there's a lot of different things there, because sometimes when things are really, really good, and that would be when people are bullish about expanding and opening a business, real estate may be very high and startup costs may be very high as well. And so you might have an extended ROI, although that's when people are the most confident in buying a business. So you do have to consider when you're looking at a brick and mortar business, what the real estate market is at that time. There are some times when those things aren't always true, when the markets are good, but real estate is still available. And we'll talk about that more in a different real estate video. Service businesses are always very popular. They tend to be bought a little bit more strategically, meaning someone may work in a certain industry and then seek out a franchise in that industry. When you find service business, a lot of times people will look only for that specific service. So if they had a home inspector come to their home and they paid $500 for a home inspection, they may think, geez, what a great business. And they'll only seek out those 5 different home inspector franchises and look and compare them all to each other and purchase it, because they say, well, look, I'm really technical, I'm handy, I have a big background in kind of computers and technical things that I'll need to use in order to do this, so it looks like a good business for me. And so service businesses tend to be bought more strategically, where things like food oftentimes are passion. It doesn't mean they're not strategic about it. It just means there's people that dream their whole lives of owning a restaurant or running a restaurant, and people coming in and saying hello and doing all these things. They can be oftentimes passion projects. And it doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It just means there's a lot of folks that maybe never were in food who have always been fascinated by it. In other videos, we are going to cover mistakes brands make when setting up their franchises, because there's a lot of different franchises that could be great, but there are a lot of pitfalls out there that folks will make when setting up their franchises. And then another one is the key decisions you should be making or considering when setting them up. And there are some that can really be keys, like how many moving parts there are, how much burden you're going to put on the franchise and how much you're going to take on at the corporate office. And that can be a big part of people's buying decision as well. So when you look at your business and considering, well, how many moving parts do I have here? Does the person have to master 5, 6, 7 different things to be successful? Or can we just limit them to one specific thing and we can take the rest of the burdens off of them? So there are some unique things that you do have to consider when making a franchise. And there are experts out there that can help you too. There's a lot of stuff online, a lot of examples out there probably already. One of the big things people worry about is competition, and frankly, that probably shouldn't be on the top of the list. If you look at something like the burger industry, you would have never considered, after there was already McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's, that you could have all these other brands come out later, Five Guys and Smash Burger, and I mean, you could go on and on and on. And yet there's many, many successful brands now out there in the burger industry that people would have deterred many folks from even entering just 10, 15, 20 years ago. So competition is probably not as big of a factor as most people would think. We hope you enjoyed this episode of All About Franchising. As usual, please put comments. We are going to do some videos where we're going to answer questions. We may even do some open forum stuff sometimes where we do some live. So the more comments we get, we'll know what type of videos to create and what questions need to be answered. So we appreciate you coming and listening one more time.